Also tonight, over the weekend, during a town hall in Berlin, in Germany, former President Barack Obama said he was concerned that progressives are risking going after each other in a brutal primary in what he called a, quote, circular firing squad. But the Democratic Party, well, it was not his favorite topic. According to the Washington Examiner, Obama referred to himself almost 400 times during this one speech. Here are just a few examples, but for the benefit of time, we can't give up the whole show to him referring to him. Take a look.
Probably the biggest impact I could have, I was also convinced of, there's only one of me, and I believe I could not have been. I'm not here to support any political party. I've held my last political office, but I'm deeply invested. I'm assuming, I always used to say, I think you can. Actually, I'm not sure. Am I correct about that?
I wanted to hide, I've got to take and I was elected. I can give you a little bit of this. I've been on both sides. When I helped, I was the first I can get, I think, I'll be able to, I know from experience, that's what I'm going to do. I knew I'd work until 2. I did not read, I think, and even as president, I was a pretty busy guy.
Remember Toby Keith, all about me, all about I, all about number one, oh my, me, my, what I think, what I know, what I want, what I don't want to see. I like talking about you usually. Every once in a while, I want to talk about me. Here's a reaction. The host of Newt's World podcast, former Speaker of the House, Fox News contributor, Newt Gingrich. Mr. Speaker, good to see you. I want to start with, I see you smiling. I want to start with this party. I won't go through the list I gave Kevin McCarthy. Stack the Supreme Court, get rid of the Electoral College, abortion during labor and after labor. I mean, then the new Green Deal. You get it.
Well, first of all, I think we should remember that the I, me president presided over the collapse of his own party. They lost more state legislative seats, governorships, control of the U.S. House, control of the Senate. In a sense, that's because in the end, while Barack Obama loved Barack Obama, the country sort of wanted somebody to actually deliver something. And so literally, he presided over the biggest collapse in the Democratic Party in modern times. But because of the news media, of course, you'd never quite know that. I think the most revealing thing is what's happening on this whole idea of reparations. And I think we should take it seriously in a very positive way of allowing the Democrats to explain exactly who would get reparations. How would you determine? How far back would you go? Would Elizabeth Warren be eligible for 1,372nd part? If you think about it, you have to have somebody who is virtually out of touch with reality to believe that in this extraordinarily complex society, which continues to this day to get mass migration from all over the world, legal migration, by the way, that you could somehow reach out magically and figure out who to give reparations to. This is a perfect Al Sharpton, utterly phony issue, but it tells you the decay of the Democratic Party, that he now has presidential candidates thrilled to go see him to tell him that they would sign a bill this crazy.
Let me ask you, you see what's happening at the border. One of the reasons I believe it's happening at this time, at this level, is because they know if they get in the country, once they're here, they're not getting thrown out. And we had a court ruling earlier tonight. But also, it's interesting, while everybody's been arguing about the border, the president's been repairing and building the wall, and they weren't able to override his veto. The Defense Department has already allocated and identified $9 billion to complete the wall. And I think the people coming know that this is probably their last shot.
Oh, I think that's part of it. I think the other part, though, you touched on a minute ago. The president ought to give a speech in which he goes through every single federal court decision that has crippled the U.S. government in dealing with immigration, and then he should announce that on behalf of fairness, we're going to open up centers next to each of those judges' personal homes, and we'll be glad to ship as many people who are here illegally as they would like. And some of those, I'm sure some of the Ninth Circuit Court judges would be thrilled to have 500 illegal immigrants in the house next to them. But this whole idea of these judges who capriciously exercise their liberalism at no cost then no cost to them personally, no cost to them professionally. And I think that the president ought to take that head on.
Last question, real quick, we're running out of time. Your concern, China, their 5G expansion, we're falling behind.
The Defense Innovation Board just came out and said we are losing badly. It may be the first strategic defeat in our competition with China. And if they create a Chinese internet worldwide, we are in very deep trouble.
We better figure out defenses for all the hacking that goes on against our country and our government. Apparently, we keep allowing this to happen. That's why Hillary's server was so bad. Mr. Speaker, great to see you. Congrats on the podcast, as always, and everything you do.
There's deafening radio silence from Democrats after the Green New Deal Senate vote. Now just only 91 House Democrats support the Green New Deal. No 2020 Democrats, zero like it at all. Democrats also running away from Medicare for All, because basically that and the Green New Deal would unleash socialism on this planet like never before. Medicare for All support has collapsed. In the House, just 107 Democrats support it, and now there's only two 2020 Democrats support it, including Tulsi Gabbard and Tim Ryan. The others are doing radio silence. This after Nancy Pelosi made an exceedingly rare move. She slammed Bernie Sanders' single payer to the Washington Post. For the first time ever, Nancy Pelosi never does this. She talked about its cost. She said it's $30 trillion in cost. She said, quote, "Show me how you get there. Let's see what Medicare for All means. A lot of people like their employer-based insurance. It's a $30 trillion price tag. What do people get for that in terms of care? What do they pay for that along the way?" Let's bring in Kelsey Bolar. Kelsey, great to have you on at the Heritage Foundation. Kelsey, Nancy never talks about price tags there. $30 trillion, she said. Your take.
Right. Democrats in general don't like talking about the cost of any of these massive programs they're calling for. So it certainly says a lot when the leader of their party is speaking out. But I think we also need to realize the other de facto leader of their party is Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez, who is pushing these massive government takeover plans like the Green New Deal and like government-run healthcare. And let's be clear about government-run healthcare. This means we have bureaucrats making decisions about your private healthcare and your private health insurance. I think once Americans really realize what costs this comes at, not just financially, but what it means for them personally, they're going to run away from it, as we're seeing many of these members of Congress that you're referencing, these Democrats do already.
And it would get rid of Obamacare, it would get rid of Medicare, or get rid of Medicaid. Let's get to this blacklist that the Socialist Democrats who support Alexandria Cortez, it's happening now. The Socialists have launched a DCC blacklist. It's on the website. It says it will go after moderate centrists or conservative Democrats like Texas's Henry Cuellar. Kelsey, he sits in one of the safest House Democrat seats. He's had it for more than 2 decades. What is going on here?
The party of tolerance no longer tolerates different perspectives within their own party. I think this really says a lot about where the Democrat Party is right now, that they are being hijacked by the more radical socialist wing of their party, to the point where there's really no such thing as a moderate Democrat anymore. Or if there is, they no longer have a voice. They no longer have a platform.
Or they have to apologize, like Joe Biden has to apologize for everything, right?
Right, and they don't get news, they don't get interviews and media attention like the more radical members do from places like CNN and MSNBC. So that's the direction they want to take their party. It's going to come at a massive cost.
Kelsey Bolar, thank you so much.
We have billionaires who've made their money in this system, calling it all a crisis, pretty much agreeing with Bernie Sanders, a socialist. Do they have a point? What do you think?
You know, David, I think it's amazing. You've got billionaires who have gotten all this money. If they want to feel guilty about it, give it away. Give it away to the people who aren't making enough. Because there's nothing in the law that says they can't pay more taxes. When I was governor, I started a Tax Me More fund. I said, if you don't think you're paying enough, here's an envelope. Fill it in, send it in, and we'll take your money because you are free under the law to pay more than your fair share if you feel like you're not paying it. This is nonsense. I'm going to tell you something. Some of the companies in America, Delta Airlines, a great example of them, do generously benefit their employees when the company is doing well. It's a matter of the choice of the company, and I think smart companies take good care of their employees. I wonder why Howard Schultz didn't pay the Starbucks people a whole lot better. I mean, that was where he could have started. This is absurd, and it's just always just ticks me off when I hear billionaires who have kept theirs and they want no one else to be able to get theirs.
And, Governor, it's frustrating. I mean, there's such ignorance out there on the left and the right about just what capitalism is. One of the bits of ignorance is believing that America really is a capitalist society now. It's a mixed society. There's some freedom, but of course there's plenty of controls as well. Now, the Democrats, though, and I think you could put Howard Schultz on that list as well, the Democrats are explicitly for socialism. That's not a dirty word for them. They are against property rights writ large. And as far as having a democracy, you know, the founders were onto something. They said we were a republic, not a democracy. And Ben Franklin famously said that a democracy is like two wolves and a sheep deciding what to have for lunch.
That's a good one.
So, I mean, my view on this
said.
is I think that the Democrats are a little bit of a decade late in addressing this problem. There is no question that globalization hurt a segment of our population. And basically, no one paid attention to that for a long time, really until Donald Trump made an issue of it in the 2016 election. What I am sort of puzzled about is Howard Schultz, because I heard him address a crowd last week, talk to young men of color. It was a boys' club lunch, and tell them that they have the best opportunity of anywhere in the world. And don't let anyone tell you that that opportunity doesn't exist. Ray Dalio, I think reasonably, calls out education as a building block of that opportunity and says that our public education system needs to be better. And I would sign on to that in a heartbeat. I think we are letting down minority kids. I think if there's one thing we could do as a country to make sure that everyone really gets a fair shot at the apple, it is improving our public schools.
Excellent point, Liz. I want to bring up what Governor Mike Huckabee said, and the fact that these all men are byproducts of the system, of the capitalist system. Ray Dalio saying that, oh, it worked in the past, but it's no longer working now. I do encourage people to read the paper that he put out on LinkedIn, because there is a lot of statistics in there. And he does, one line that he had is that capitalists can't split the pie properly, but socialists can't grow it. However, he highlighted the American dream, part of it, which Liz mentioned, the fact that the education levels and how Americans score is much lower than a lot of other developed nations. But the other thing is economic mobility. We talk about the fact that, oh, we should be able to do what we want if we worked hard for that money. Economic mobility is extremely low here. Going from the lower class to a middle class, you're starting to see the middle class slowly diminish. So I think that, yes, this is a policy win or a way for them, the Democrats, to speak, and maybe you can say Schultz is a centrist, but overall it's raising an issue that a lot of people are talking about at the moment, given the income gap, given the wealth gap.
But you did say that economic mobility here was extremely low. That's a very relative. It has historically been much higher than other countries.
Right.
Even Europe, let alone, so forget about the socialist country where everybody's equally poor. This country does have a tremendous movement still on the economic ladder. You see the Forbes 500 list. You see as many companies coming off and individuals coming off of that list as getting onto it. So I would argue, I don't know about you
Think
folks.
about the lower class, though. Those that are coming from lower income families moving into middle income brackets.
Go ahead, John.
And Christina, I mean, I don't believe anyone is lower class. But
I didn't mean lower. You know, I meant lower income. It was a mishap of words.
Okay, well, where else are the lower income benefited more than in capitalism? Look, capitalism needs to be reformed. It needs to be tried. Wherever it's been tried, you've seen massive elimination of subsistence poverty. I mean, across mass parts of China, of Southeast Asia, just in the last 20 years, wherever capitalism has been tried, great wealth creation for all on the spectrum have established. And unfortunately, Ray Dalio, I don't know, maybe he's been listening to you, Christina, because he has bought into this whole wealth inequality gap issue. The problem isn't the gap between the very wealthy and the very poor. That's not the issue. The problem is that all Americans are free from government to pursue their own interests. That's what capitalism is.
And let's be real clear. I want to agree with Jonathan and add this point. Capitalism does not believe in a finite set of economic capacity. It believes that the pie is not fixed and there's only so many slices, and then you have to divide it up. In true capitalism, there is no limit to the infinite nature of wealth creation. That's what somebody has to remind some of these critics of.
And I do think it's ironic that we're having this discussion just as we see not only real wage growth for the first time in a decade, but actually a closing of the gap between high and low. We're seeing the fastest growth in income now at the lowest end of the income spectrum. So it is sort of interesting that socialism has sort of raised its head, just as I think the strong jobs market, the strong economic growth we're seeing is beginning to rectify some of these issues.
And I would ask again, Christine, I mean, is inequality of income the best way to measure wealth? Isn't consumption a better way? Because by consumption standards, we've never been doing better in terms of what individuals have. Poor people now in this country have more than middle class had 30
By what
years
means,
ago.
though? By what means? If you look at the level of debt across the board with corporate, individual, that has risen to really high levels. I understand that maybe you don't agree with the income gap and you don't agree with the wealth gap and maybe you don't agree with the economic
I don't think
mobility.
it's the best measurement.
But
That's
then
what
what
I'm saying.
about even the Federal Reserve coming out with a study very recently saying that only 40% of Americans can find $400 in a case of emergency. So what about all of these other signs?
But Christine, I mean, the solution, I don't know if it's your solution, but the Democrat solution is what? More government in every element where government has dominated the economy. I mean, the debt you're talking about, a lot of it is student loan debt, for example. That's one example of the places where Americans have been hurt by government's intervention into the economy. And what's Ray Dalio's, ultimately, what is his solution here? Tax the wealthy more, give it to government, minders, these so-called Platonic geniuses, and let them divvy out what is so-called fair for the economy. Look, Ray Dalio, Howard Schultz, they earn that money. And if you see them, you should thank them. Thank a billionaire, because the only way you become a billionaire in America is by making millions and millions of people very happy and very
Jonathan
successful.
got the last word on that.